Let me thank Josh Ritter for the music, Molly White, healthcare worker, and Brian Bryant and the entire union movement here in Maine. Jordan Rosignol for her work in child care. And let me thank your next United States Senator, Graham Plattner. And your next Governor, Troy Jackson. It is really an honor to be with you tonight and to tell you that in the last number of months, I have traveled all over this country. We have been to 15 states, and now I can say from Maine to California. And a lot of states in between. And we've talked to over 300,000 people. And what I can tell you without any fear of contradiction is the American people do not want an oligarchic form of government. They do not want an authoritarian form of government. They do not want to live under a kleptocracy where a president gets rich by being president. And they sure as hell are sick and tired of the ongoing war of the rich against the working class of this country. This is an unprecedented and, in fact, dangerous moment in American history. And we have got to respond in an unprecedented way. And the way we respond is to build the kind of strong, progressive, grassroots movement, the likes of which this country has never seen. Now, the Trump playbook is not complicated. He does what demagogues historically have always done and are doing today. He's not the only one. And what they do is, in a nation and a world in trouble, where people are hurting, where people are saying, what's going on? Why am I struggling to put food on the table? Why am I struggling to pay for rent or child care or medical care? He says, I know the answer. And the answer is it's them. It's that group of people, that minority, politically powerless group of people. They are the cause of all of your problems. Nothing new there. This has gone on. This is what demagogues have done forever. In Europe, it was Jews, it was gypsies. In this country, it's been the blacks, the gays, you name it. Always a powerless minority, and then you blame them for all of the problems. Now, I was, sadly, at Trump's inauguration. And I sat in the front row, not any further away than where you guys are. And what I saw on that day, something I'll never forget, standing right beside Trump, right behind him, were the three wealthiest people in this country. Mr. Musk, Mr. Bezos, and Mr. Zuckerberg. And then sitting behind them, like 15 other billionaires that Trump had nominated to head up major federal agencies. And honestly, what I was thinking then, I'm not a great historian, but I really was thinking about American history, and I was thinking back to Abraham Lincoln in Gettysburg. And many of you remember that a few days after that terrible, terrible battle, that enormously important battle against slavery, when so many soldiers died, Abraham Lincoln, a few days later, goes to the battlefield. And he looks around him and he said, "These men have not died in vain. And we have a vision of America that we're not going to give up on. And that vision is a government of the people." That is our vision. And when I was sitting there in the inaugural, looking at all of these billionaires, what I was thinking is their vision is very different. The Trump idea of government is a government of the billionaire class, by the billionaire class, and we ain't going to let that happen. Now, the truth of the matter is that real politics, when you really start thinking about it, ain't complicated. It's about asking a few questions. Where are we today? How did we get here? How can we move forward? What is our vision of the future of America? Where do we want to go? And unfortunately, in the corporate media, we don't discuss these issues too much, and we surely don't do that in the halls of Congress. So let me say a few words about where we are. It's easy to talk about Russia being an oligarchic society. They are. Easy to talk about Putin being one of the richest people in the world. He is. Well, guess what? In a nation in which we have a handful of billionaires controlling our economy, controlling our media, controlling our government, we are living in an oligarchy, and that is the struggle we have got to take on. Today in America, we have more income and wealth inequality than we have ever had in the history of the United States of America. Now, you don't see this discussed on TV, and very few people in Congress talk about it. But if you can believe it, and do believe it because it's true, you got one guy, Mr. Musk, who owns more wealth than the bottom 52% of American households. Can you believe that? One man. You got the top 1% owning more wealth than the bottom 93%. You got CEOs of large corporations now making over 350 times more than their average employees. You know, over the last 50 years, there's been huge transitions in the economy. I was mayor of Burlington, Vermont, the early 80s. And when I got into City Hall, we didn't have any computers. There were no computers then. And for the young people, there was once a time there were no cell phones. Hard to believe, but it's true. My point is that over that 50 years, there's been a huge explosion in technology. worker productivity has greatly expanded. The average worker today is producing a lot more than he or she did 50 years ago. But you know what? Despite all of that huge increase in worker productivity, the average weekly wage in inflation adjusted for dollars today is lower than it was 50 years ago. When I was a kid, it was the norm. And I grew up in a working class family. I grew up in a home where we lived in a rent-controlled apartment, thank God, or my family would not have survived. In those days, despite that, in most working class homes, one person in the family could go out and work 40 hours a week and make enough money to pay the bills. Am I right? All right. So you got all of this explosion in technology, all of this creation of new wealth. What the hell happened? Well, I will tell you what happened. There was a study done by the Rand Corporation, not exactly a socialist organization. And what they found is that during that period, there was a $75 trillion transfer of wealth from the bottom 90% to the top 1%. So you got all this technology, all this increase in worker productivity, and the end result is the people on top today have never, ever had it so good. Now that's one reality. Rich getting richer, never had it so good. But it's not just income and wealth inequality. It's not even just concentration of ownership in sector after sector in our economy, whether it's agriculture, transportation, financial services. You got a small number of huge corporations owning those sectors, determining what price you pay for products and how workers are treated. But it's not even just that. These guys not only own the economy, they now own our corrupt political system. So as a result of this disastrous Citizens United Supreme Court decision, they said, billionaires, hey, you have the freedom to own the American political system, and the billionaires responded accordingly. They create these super PACs where they can spend as much money as they want. Democracy is not about Elon Musk spending $270 million to elect Donald Trump president. And obviously his reward was to become the most powerful person in government for 3 or 4 months until he and Trump had a lover's quarrel. But it is not just Republicans. It is also the fact that billionaires play a much too significant role in the Democratic Party as well. Let me tell you what a corrupt political system looks like. And it's not just billionaires buying elections. That's bad. It gets even worse than that. When Trump brought forth his big, beautiful bill, which is, in my view, by the way, you're all familiar with that bill, that is the most dangerous, disgusting piece of legislation ever passed in the modern history of this country. As you all know, this is a bill that gave, just think about it. At a time when the rich have never had it so good, gave $1 trillion in tax breaks to the top 1%. At a time when large corporations are enjoying record-breaking profits, they got a $900 billion tax break. But it's even more disgusting than that, because these huge tax breaks for the rich, you know how they were paid for? They were paid for by a $1 trillion cut in Medicaid and a large cut in the Affordable Care Act. They were paid for by a massive cut in nutrition programs for hungry kids. How disgusting is it to give a tax break to a billionaire and take food out of the mouth of kids who are hungry in this country? It was paid for by massive cuts to education, which will make it harder for working class kids to get the higher education that they need. But it goes even beyond that, because what happened is the word gets out to the Republicans that if you stand up and be clear that you're going to oppose this bill, we're going to destroy you politically. There's a guy named Tom Tillis, senator from North Carolina. And Tillis made a mistake. He actually read the legislation. Big mistake. So the guy concludes, he says, I can't vote for this. It's a terrible piece. Hundreds of thousands of people in North Carolina going to lose their health care. Can't vote for it. Within hours, Trump was on social media ripping this guy apart. Billionaires were saying, we are going to primary you. You are finished. And a few hours later, the guy says, I'm out of here. Forget it. I'm not going to run. I can't win. Billionaires are against me. It's all over. Earlier, a few months before that, we had a major budget bill, which was not great, but would have been helpful to working class people. Elon Musk sends out a tweet. He says, anybody who votes for this legislation, I am going to spend unlimited amounts of money to defeat you. You know, in New England, we grow up with the belief that kind of democracy is one person, one vote, not billionaires controlling the political process. But these guys not only control the economy, not only control our political system, they own the media. Not an accident that Elon Musk owns Twitter. Not an accident that Mark Zuckerberg owns Meta, which controls Facebook and Instagram. Not an accident that Jeff Bezos owns the Washington Post and Twitch. Not an accident that Mr. Ellison recently bought Paramount, which will give him ownership of CBS. Not an accident that Rupert Murdoch owns Fox, the Wall Street Journal, the New York Post, and right-wing publications all across this country. So what I am saying to you, brothers and sisters, we are living in a society where the people on top have unbelievable power over the economy, over the political system, over the media, and over us. And it is time that we say, very loudly and clearly, that millions of people fought and died to create a government that works for all, not just the 1%. And let me tell you something. Tell you a story, if I might, which I think epitomizes kind of where we are. I'm on the Veterans Committee, and I take very seriously the need to make sure that our veterans get all of the health care and the other benefits that they are entitled to. And I go around Vermont. When I go around Vermont, I often meet veterans, and I say, you know, you're entitled to this program. A lot of good VA programs out there. And as often as not, and I'm sure it's the same in Maine, people will say to me, Bernie, I know that, but you know what? There are other veterans that are worse off than I am. I'm okay. I don't need the program. Make sure other people get it. That human reaction is called empathy. That human reaction says that as a human being, we can't do it alone. We are part of all. That I have got to care about your families have got to care about my family. We are in this together. But I will tell you, and I tell you with some knowledge because I deal with these guys every day, these oligarchs lack that sense of humanity, that sense of empathy. I don't mean to, I don't like to attack people in a personal way. But what I will tell you is their goal, these are very smart people, they work very hard, but they believe that they are entitled. And I say this sincerely. Way back when we studied history as kids, remember what the American Revolution was about? It was taking on the divine rights of kings. Throughout Europe, you had all these guys, God gave me all of this money and all of this power, it was God-given. These guys, trust me, believe that they have the right to rule, and democracy is an impediment to their success. They want it all. They want it all, and they don't care who they step on in order to get even more and more. You would think, look, everybody in this room, this arena, wants a good life. We all want money. We all want to live comfortably. That's kind of natural. But if you had $5 billion, you might think, hey, I did it. I got everything I'm ever going to need in my life. How many homes? Zuckerberg, I think, has 11 homes in Palo Alto, California. Bezos has 14 homes. They got jet planes. They go up to outer space on there where they get bored, and have a good day. When is enough enough? They are prepared to destroy Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, the VA, in order to get more for themselves. And the reason is they are very religious people. But you know what their religion is? It's not the Sermon on the Mount. It's not do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Their religion is greed. And they worship on the altar of money. They want more and more and more, and they could care less about the implications of their greed. Love you too. So while the rich get richer, and we live in the wealthiest country in the history of the world, what's going on for ordinary people? Well, here's the reality, and you don't hear much about it. Today in America, 60% of our people are living paycheck to paycheck. Now, you all know what paycheck to paycheck is. Many of you are living paycheck to paycheck. I grew up in a family living paycheck to paycheck. I know what it's about. We have the highest rate of childhood poverty of almost any major nation on earth. I always get a kick that many of my colleagues in the Senate, they say, we love America, love America. Well, if you love America, you love the children of America and the future of America. It's not just the kids, not just the children. We have the highest rate of senior poverty of almost any major country on earth. 22% of seniors in America today are trying to survive on $15,000 a year. I don't know how anybody, let alone a senior, survives on $15,000. Half of seniors trying to get by on $30,000 or less. We have a system, an economic system, which for the working class of this country is broken. How many people here think that our health care system is working? Well, it ain't. It is a broken, cruel, and dysfunctional system. The function of the current healthcare system is not to do what virtually every other major country does, and that is to provide healthcare to all as a human right. The function of this system is to make as much money for the drug companies and the insurance companies as it can. So you got a healthcare system which is broken. You got, in terms of our young people, a child care system. I don't know how it's doing here in Portland, but in Vermont, many places of the country, incredibly expensive, while child care workers are paid totally inadequate wages. We have an education system right now in which Trump and his friends basically want to destroy public education in America. We have teachers in rural areas in my state, and I expect in your state, starting off at $35,000, $40,000 a year. We got millions of young people can't afford to go to college because they don't want to leave school $50,000 or $100,000 in debt. You want to go to medical school, you're a working class kid, you want to go to medical school, you know what you're going to leave school in debt with? $500,000. So you got an economy that's working for the rich, you got a healthcare system that is broken, you got an education system that is broken, and you got a housing system that is totally broken. You know, I did some calculations. I'm not 100% sure of this. But it's, again, I said my family had no money, but we lived in a rent-controlled apartment. And I figured it out, given my dad's salary, we ended up paying about 18% of our income in housing, 18%. Does anybody here know anybody that's paying 18% today? The truth is that we got 20 million households that are paying 50% or more for housing. So if you're paying 50% for housing of your income, what the hell do you have left to spend on? You have nothing, right? So you got a housing system broken, educational system being really attacked right now, healthcare system broken. And everybody knows the importance of good quality food to stay healthy, right? Anyone go to the grocery store lately or try to buy decent quality food and see the price of that? So bottom line is, in the richest country in the history of the world, people on top never had it so good. And yet for the basic necessities of life, healthcare, education, food, housing, working families are struggling. Brothers and sisters, we need to do two things at this difficult moment in American history. Number one is we got to take on Trump every day of the week in every way we can. And it's not just taking them on economic issues. We got to end the absurd foreign policy that we have right now, which is spending billions of dollars to starve children in Gaza. And one of the reasons that I want Graham Plattner in the Senate with me is he will stand with me. No more money for the Israeli war machine that is destroying the people of Palestine. But in order to be successful politically, it's not good enough to simply take on Trump and the oligarchs every day. What we need to do, which the Democratic Party, the leadership, does not do, is have a vision of where we want this country to be. And let me just remind all of you that the truth of the matter is that in the richest country on earth, and at a time, and I got a lot of concerns about AI and robotics. I don't know that we can get into it tonight, but that's a whole other issue. But we have the potential to become even richer. And from a world historical point of view, throughout the history of the world, and today, people are struggling, and there are countries in the world where people are trying to survive on $1 a day. Kids are dying from easily preventable diseases. Throughout history, human beings have struggled just to stay alive. For the first time in world history, human history, we now have the opportunity with sane democratic policies to create a decent life for every man, woman, and child in this country. That is not a radical idea. So what I am begging of you is don't think small, think big. Health care is a human right. Every man, woman, and child. We need Medicare for all. And I want young people to become doctors and nurses and healthcare professionals without going deeply into debt, because we desperately need you. Now you tell me in this great and inventive country where we have so many brilliant minds, you tell me why we are not having the best educational system in the world. We used to be the best educated country on earth. That's no longer the case. I want every young person to know from 3 years of age on that he or she does their work well, they will be able to get all of the education they need regardless of the income of their family. Education is a human right. We need to attract the best and the brightest into education and pay them the kind of salaries that their work demands. Which is why I've introduced legislation that no teacher in America should make a starting salary of less than $60,000 a year. We can do it. You're going to have the best child care system in the world, best higher education system in the world. And maybe, just maybe, instead of spending $1 trillion on the Pentagon, a government agency which cannot even complete an independent audit, massive waste and fraud, maybe instead of spending $1 trillion on the Pentagon, we spend a few $100 billion building low-income and affordable housing in America. Maybe instead of giving tax breaks to the fossil fuel industry, we start investing in the cheapest form of new electricity, solar and wind, to create millions of jobs to save the planet. And maybe here on Labor Day, we make it clear that at a time when millions of workers understand the importance of unions and want to join unions, we're going to pass legislation to prohibit corporations from firing workers who want to join a union. We're going to pass the PRO Act. We're going to raise the minimum wage to a living wage, $17 an hour. We're going to end the absurdity of being one of very few countries in the world that does not guarantee paid family and medical leave. Now, at a time when so many seniors are struggling, when half of older workers have nothing in the bank as they face retirement, you got Republicans out there talking about their desire to cut Social Security. Well, we're not going to cut Social Security. We're going to expand Social Security benefits. And we're going to do that by lifting the cap on taxable income so the wealthy start paying their fair share of taxes. Absolutely. Let me give you, very often I get criticized, like every day. And people say, oh, Bernie is a radical, he's out of the mainstream and all that stuff. I want you to understand, please understand that everything we are talking about are supported by a majority of the American people. These are not radical ideas. Brothers and sisters, we got to be thinking outside the box. In this state, we got to elect Graham, and we got to elect Troy and other good people. But they can't do it alone. They really can't. And we have got to, at this moment, not just for ourselves, but for our kids and future generations and the very well-being of the planet, we got to be thinking in new ways, and that means being involved in whatever way we are comfortable in being involved. I will tell you this, what the ruling class does through their media and their culture is they basically try to say that ordinary people are powerless. What they're saying is they have all the money, they have all of the power, you got nothing. And they can do anything they want, and you can't stop them. Well, I think we've got some news for them. Not only can we stop them, not only will we stop them, but for the future of this country and, in fact, the world, we must stop them. Today on Labor Day, when we thank the unions for all they have done for the working class of this country, we understand and remember what a union is. A union is the understanding that one person cannot do it alone, that we all have got to come together to fight with and for each other. And what the union movement is about is solidarity forever. Thank you all.